newly on the job. I appreciate everybody's attendance today, and let's do a few introductions, and then I'll get into some housekeeping and just talk about how we're going to run our time together. And my administrative assistant is on the line today, Ashley, and Ashley will be fielding questions via email. Her email address is in the chat thread, and we're asking folks that have questions as we work through our time together to drop those in an email. She's going to then distribute that to the group here, and we're going to get to questions toward the end of our time together. Let's see, let's do, we'll just move to my right. Looks like I've got Jim Owen next. Jim is the principal for the early elementary school, and Jim and I share a little bit of commonality. We're both in our first year here at Madawan, starting out. So Jim is in on today's conversation. Next to Jim on my screen is Jay Larner. Jay Larner is our assistant superintendent for curriculum assessment and instruction, and we share a commonality there. Jay is also new to the Madawan team as of August 1st. That makes John Berlin and Ashley our veteran members here today. John is joining us. He's the principal from or at the later elementary school. So this town hall this morning and this evening focuses on the elementary return to learning plan. I realize we may have families joining us today that have children in multiple buildings. We did feel it was best to do focused conversations. If we have time at the end and there are questions maybe dealing with middle school or high school, we could possibly entertain those. There are separate meetings scheduled for those two focus areas this week. Middle school is tomorrow, 10 and 6 p.m., and high school is Thursday, 10 and 6 p.m. So that's the panel today, and let's see. We're just kind of curious about how many folks we've got joining us. Looks like we've got about 156 people in.
And growing.
Good group and growing, so appreciate the attendance. The thought for today, process-wise, is we want to initially work through two documents and talk through the plan, the timeline for the different stages, and then the second page gets into a little bit more detail with specifically early and later elementary schools in terms of phase 4 remote start. We wanted to focus initially on the remote portion of it in phase 4, get that information out. I know we have questions that have been asked about the stage B and C, which is our hybrid and more full-time face-to-face. We want to get to those questions as well, but because we're starting remotely, we wanted to at least start with that to get that information out. Again, for those of you just joining us, there is an email displayed in the chat thread, and that you can submit questions, and those will get forwarded to the panelists here, and we'll do some Q&A at the end. We do have a complimentary or the same meeting happening tonight at 6 o'clock, and we're going to do our best to run these in the same manner. The questions may vary, obviously, depending on the participants, but we are going to run the format the same. I am going to screen share a document here, and I know that it can change the layout of your screen and populate in an odd manner, and I do apologize for that up front, but we are going to be working off this document, so just be prepared for that to be shared. All right, let's see here. Ashley, I'm going to need sharing rights when you get a second there. All righty, so stand by here. We're gonna. Okay, so panelists, do you see that the blue graphic?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, and I moved my video screen off of that screen. Is that populating at a different size for you? Is it too small?
I think it's okay.
All right. Last night when we were sharing this, my video screen was on that screen and it really compressed it for people apparently. So, okay, so let's just kind of jump into this graphic here, and we want to just roughly outline the timeline that we're working on off of in terms of a graduated release into a face-to-face instructional model. This looks a little bit different than the overview document, although the content is generally the same. We just kind of reformatted this into a cleaner format and one that is a little bit more condensed than, I believe, the 14-page document that was sent out. This will be posted up online this week, but we're using this as a basis to guide our conversation. So I'm just going to kind of walk through this, look at some of the bullet points, and then we'll get into another document. And principals or Jay, just feel free to jump in if there's detail that, especially on the second page, that you feel like you need to add in. Okay, just kind of run kind of an informal panel up here.
That's good. Yep.
Okay.
So one of the questions that has come up is about district provided technology. We are providing technology and hotspots, and there was a survey that went out last Friday, I believe, specifically about technology. So many questions about how to access that, and just right off the bat, we look for that school messenger. It's also posted online. That form you can use to request technology, and then the tech department will be working to get devices to families or hotspots. One question came in just based on, technology will be available for those families that demonstrate a need. The question was, define demonstrating a need. If you're asking for assistance, that is a need. We're not going to, nitpick folks on their definition of need. We are asking families, though, if they have connectivity and devices that their children can use, it would be helpful if they utilize those in a primary manner. That would leave other items for other families. But if you feel like you have a need, communicate, reach out, and we're going to do our best to support and fill that need. So we're looking at August 17th through the 21st, just to make sure we're firmed up and having technology out. That's already started, actually. Friday with the survey, the tech department's already working through contacting folks. So that process is well underway. That would move us into what we're calling stage A. And just a clarification, you're going to see the word phase. You're going to see the word stage. So phasing, as a reminder, is the Michigan Roadmap to Safe Schools qualifier. We are currently in phase 4. The state dictates that phase. Staging is a Madawan term. So we have 3 stages we're looking at under phase 4. And of course, if we are moved to phase 3, parts of this plan will not apply because we cannot have any face-to-face contact on site in a phase 3. But we're in a phase 4 right now in our county, and that's how we're planning to start a school. So under a stage A, it is a full remote start. All students will begin fully remote online. We'll get into a schedule sample here in a minute in much more detail, but there will be a structured day that families and students can count on and get used to, and staff can as well. Stage B, when you're thinking about deadlines here, we are looking to make a decision about moving to stage B by September 4th. And so the intent here on the structured targets was to make sure we're moving through the stages in an acceptable but streamlined and brisk manner. It was very important to the task force that we wanted to move into what we would call a stage 3 at the latest within 8 weeks of the start. So this is really happening in 2-week increments. We're starting school. We want to have a decision about the next stage, and then we want to give parents roughly 2 weeks to prep for the next stage. Then we roll into the next stage. We live in that stage. We make a decision on moving into stage C from B, give 2 weeks to prep for that, and then we roll into stage 3. There were questions about, why these dates? They weren't arbitrary. It really was based on the team's decision to keep this moving toward face-to-face, and not, as opposed to saying we're not putting dates in, or saying we're going to just go by trimesters. We'll be in stage A for trimester 1, stage B for trimester 2. We just felt that was a little too lengthy to hold in those stages. Some other highlights of stage A. This is a full-time remote online program driven by our staff, our curriculum, our outcomes. So face-to-face instruction is very important to staff and parents. That was very duly noted in the spring survey, that parents and staff wanted more structured face-to-face time online. And so you'll see from the schedule that is built in daily. Students will have the opportunity to engage with staff in a live format. There will also be periods of time for offline work. So you might see terms like synchronous and asynchronous. Synchronous is merely live engagement in real time online. Asynchronous would be offline engagement that is not live. One other thing to note in all of these stages is that there will be strict adherence to IEPs, 504 plans, or other supports that students may need or require, or supports or needs that develop through the multiple stages. One other note, lots of questions about food service have come in. We are providing food in stage A. It will be in a manner to be picked up. We will have location staged, and I would anticipate that multiple days of meals will be handed out at a time, so to limit the trips parents will need to make, and to pick up food. Once we move to a stage B, where we have more kids coming on site, we'll be able to obviously hand that out on site to students. I would imagine in a stage B, we might also have pickup options for parents. Some of these details are still getting worked out. But for the sake of conversation, well, let's just follow the timeline here. So September 4th, the decision is made to move into stage B, and September 21 rolls around and stage B is fully implemented. This is more of your traditional hybrid model. This is getting talked a lot up in the county. There are many schools starting in a hybrid model. There are, so there's all kinds of varying models of hybrid learning out there. For the purposes of our stage B, we're looking at really in this model, K or young 5s through 12th grade in stage B, in some manner being on site 1 to 2 days per week. And then the off days would be remote learning. And at last night's board meeting, there was a lot of discussion and question about, well, what do these 1 to 2 days look like? Are they half days? Are they full days? Are we doing the A-B model where half the student body is coming in, half is at home, and then on the opposite day, the other half's coming in, the other half of students are at home on remote? And we don't have that fully worked out right now. We are leaning toward full days, all kids coming in. The idea is in a hybrid model, you're controlling the entry back into the learning environment. We will have been out of the formal classroom probably going on 7 months, and we think it's important for kids, families, and staff to slowly acclimate to what will be a completely different experience, live in-person instruction with safety protocols, mask wearing, hand washing, sanitizing, a lot of changes to daily routines. The other option on hybrid is bringing half the student body in, like I had mentioned, like an A-B model. The challenge we're having right now, and this is why we're working through this and don't have an exact answer, is that if you split the student body in half, the challenge then becomes the students that are on site are having instruction. The students that are in remote, what are they doing? Are they fully remote, asynchronous, offline? It becomes a bit of a logistical situation to work out having online instruction happening simultaneously with on-site live instruction. We don't have the capabilities fully in the district to live stream lessons. A lot of colleges have been there for a while. We're certainly looking into that technology. But very valid questions about, what does the hybrid look like? And our goal is to have that communicated out before September 4th. We want families to be fully aware of stage B for planning purposes. And we know this is an aggressive timeline. Our focus on planning has fully shifted into stage B now that stage A has been released. And so we're looking to have that shored up here in the next week or so. A couple pieces that change here in a stage B would be obviously we're having kids on site, so safety protocols, cleaning protocols in full swing. Those will be in play actually in stage A. Our staff are reporting to instruct from the classrooms in stage A, and that was generally accepted in the district, and actually I would say pretty much led and by staff themselves. There may be exceptions. We're working through like a lot of private industry exceptions to the on-site piece, but by and large our staff will be on site, so the cleaning protocols will be in place because we will have folks in the building, although in stage A no children necessarily coming in. So stage B, those processes really ramp up just because of the bodies that are going to be in the building and so forth. We will do our best to adhere to what's called cohorting, and that is really being encouraged by local health departments, that we're grouping kids together and leaving them together the majority of the day. This is recommended because it limits cross-contamination of peer groups. And so that's going to be a piece that I know the administration and staff are working on at building levels, really just trying to cohort as much as possible. Hybrid model will be run by our teachers, obviously, our curriculum, our content as well. It's important to note at stage B, we will have students that remain in full-time remote. They will not participate in face-to-face. Full-time remote will always be an option regardless of the stage this year. And hopefully, parents that have looked at the surveys are making note of that. And so as we move through these stages, we know right now, according to our surveys, that we have a fair amount of students that will be staying full-time remote. So one of the things, the questions that have come up is, okay, how are we grouping kids? Are my children going to switch teachers as we move into face-to-face? Part of the reason for all the surveys is to really try to get a bead on where families are at with the information they know. So families that are electing at this point full remote for the year or semester, we want to cohort those kids together with an online teacher, so we're minimizing the changing of teachers. We understand that there are always going to be exceptions, that parents might change their mind and want to come from full-time remote into the classroom or vice versa. I understand that. But what we're trying to do is cohort these kids together to minimize the movement of teachers. So your feedback on those surveys are very critical, and it's much appreciated, you taking the time to submit that information. So October 2 rolls around, we make the decision to go to stage C. Stage C begins on the 19th. And you'll see on this document, it says full. And what that means is that we have fully realized the plan for phase 4 that has been presented. There is some variation in stage C you're going to notice. Young 5th through 5th grade would be a Monday through Thursday, full days, in-person instruction on site, Fridays at home learning. Now, keep in mind that 100% remote option is still in play. So we will have kids that will be online 100%, not coming in for on-site instruction. When you look at 6th through 12th grade, it's 2 to 4 full days in-person instruction, off-site days, or our remote learning. And again, some variation there. We want to have that decided and to parents before October 2nd. And we just have not fully vetted out the schedule for 6 through 12 yet for stage C. We know at a minimum it's going to be 2 days on site. That's pretty standard if you're looking around at hybrid models. But we also know we want to leave ourselves a little bit of latitude to go to 4 full days on site in-person instruction. If the situation presents itself and it seems like a reasonable move. A couple bullet points under there. I don't see anything new from stage B, with the exception of kids will just be on site more days in person. Lots of questions about criteria for determining stage movement. Lots of questions about, are these dates legitimate? Some question, in that vein about, are we really moving to face-to-face? I would say yes, that is the goal. These dates were greatly debated within the district by the task force. And we felt, again, we wanted an aggressive, reasonable timeline to get to face-to-face. And so the criteria we're using, if you look at the lower left-hand box, down here, we've got the Michigan phase. Again, we're in phase 4. We've got the Van Buren Kalamazoo Health, or Van Buren Cass District Kalamazoo Health Department. Sorry for the typo there. Risk level. We're currently in a moderate, high, or medium high risk level. And those two objective pieces will be looked at, and I suppose I would call it subjective data will be building safety consideration, staff parent input. So I hope that clarifies the criteria. And I have received a lot of feedback from parents that want to debate the data on those websites. And I understand that, I appreciate that, but the district is not going to debate the legitimacy of the data on the medical or governmental websites, health department websites. We understand there is conflicting information often coming out from, say, the Pediatrics Association versus the CDC versus the government's task force on safe return on a variety of items. And while we greatly appreciate the discourse, for the purposes of these stages in this district, we can't debate the data on those sites. We're going to take that data into consideration and use that to determine the criteria. I would say, barring a phase 3 movement, We go to phase 3, all on-site is off. So anything in this model you see that where kids are coming back on site is off the table. So barring a phase 3 or a significant uptick in cases in either Van Buren or Kalamazoo County, or a movement up on the risk level, I would say these dates are solid. And we would not have put out this information if we were not committed at all costs to hitting these dates, barring significant changes to those objective criteria. There was also a lot of question, and I'll just throw out some information here in the feedback about, I just blanked. I'll come back to it. Sorry. I lost my train of thought there on that. I'll come back to that. It was somewhere around the data. I remembered. So lots of question on parent input versus staff input on returning. And before we go to the next slide, I just want to make a couple comments on that. And we understand there's no one size fits all here. These are controversial decisions. They're impacting families and staff, and we absolutely appreciate the feedback. The main question coming out of the survey data when folks looked at that was the perception that, or the feeling that we were disregarding parental input, that we were defying what the general community wanted in terms of face-to-face. And my response to that would be, boy, we're not looking at that at all that way. In fact, I would agree, staff would agree, we want to be in a face-to-face model. And we're just merely looking at the safety pieces, the criteria I've mentioned, and getting to face-to-face with a little extra time. I mean, we want to move to that. We have an aggressive timeline to get to that and as early as mid-September, fully realized in October. And so our intention wasn't at all disregarding what parents wanted. It was taking all of these factors into consideration and putting together what we felt was a reasonable, safe, graduated entry plan that really is moving quite quickly compared to other remote plans in the area. There's always a possibility that if things get worse in the objective areas, that the timelines could be adjusted. But I would counter that with, there's also a possibility that those could get tightened up, or if things improve, we could go from a stage A to a stage C. And so just hopefully that helps clarify. Again, we know this is not perfect. This plan is not perfect, but lots of feedback on that, and I wanted to at least address that. Principals, anything to add? Jay, anything to add on this first screen? I know we're going to get into more detail in a minute, and maybe you might have more comment there. Everybody okay? Okay, I'll plan on you jumping in if you have items to say, guys. All right, so let's go to the next screen. This is a little bit more detail on the early and later elementary plan. And first of all, panelists, can you see the sample schedule?
Yeah.
When I get down to that, I will increase my screen a little bit because I know it's a little blurry on my end, a little small. But just a couple housekeeping pieces on the remote learning plan. Buildings will be publishing much more granular documents this week with much more detail on process and protocol for the remote model. This is merely a snapshot, but I would anticipate by Wednesday, the early elementary and later granular document will be published that will have much more detail in it for families to see about the remote plan. I would also add that granular document will also be replicated in the hybrid and face-to-face models, although those will not be released Wednesday. We're focusing on the remote piece. So stay tuned for more information on the face-to-face coming soon. But you can see some core areas here: curriculum and instruction, communication, technology, health, wellness, resources, food service. So a little more detail here. We are looking at full-time 5-day remote learning. Again, Mattawan curriculum teachers instructing from the classroom in the vast majority of cases. Our teachers and support staff are running and supporting this program. One of the things we're working through with our paraprofessional teams are utilizing them to support families and students, especially in the non-face-to-face times. You can see in that block scheduling down there that we've got afternoon structures built in where our support staff will be available, maybe in a by appointment method. But we think it's important to A, utilize our support staff, our paraprofessionals, and B, have those opportunities for enrichment and support for our students and families. Face-to-face synchronous learning is the primary tool of instruction. This will be daily. You can see in the scheduling that there are live sessions structured in. And there are also, again, asynchronous, or this is going to be offline work. And the general idea here is that kids maybe are working on that in the afternoons. There might be brief moments of offline while you're transitioning between the learning blocks. But generally speaking, asynchronous work would be handled offline if it's not completed, in these live sessions. We are looking at, obviously, assessment of student work. We are following what we would call traditional grading at the elementary. In the spring, there was a credit, no credit if you were in middle school. I think in high school, there were some options. But for K-12 in the remote model, we are following traditional grading guidelines. And feedback for work will be continuous. And again, we're utilizing parapros to assist with feedback with families and students, but trying to keep this as traditional as possible in terms of work assignments, work submission, grading, and then the returning of that work. I'll just insert quickly right here on, I know it's kind of a cross into technology, but early elementary will be using Seesaw as the educational platform. All other buildings will be using Google Classroom. Early elementary felt that Seesaw was a bit more user-friendly and intuitive for our youngest learners. And so that is the platform that early elementary will be using. And again, just a reminder on IEPs, 504s, our tier interventions, we will be adhering to those and having supports for that as well. One note about IEPs, special education, at-risk supports. Typically at the beginning of the year, there's a lot of IEP reviewing, 504 plan reviewing, by staff, communication to home, just touching bases on all this documentation. That has started and will be happening into that first week. Generally, I'm kind of generally framing this out. It's still getting worked on, of August 24. One of the ideas we have would be once that we have got through the startup, working with families through the supports and goals that are needed, and potentially developing some online or on-site resources for our special education and at-risk population. We know that providing those supports is critical. It's required. We have to do it. We want to do it. And we did learn from the spring, that got a little tricky delivering supports in a remote model. So we are working out that scheduling. Our special education department and staff have just started reaching out to families to connect, and so watch for more information on those on-site opportunities coming in stage A. Communication feedback was critical in the spring. We're looking at a 24-hour rule on all feedback, and I actually think the tech department is looking at a much faster turnaround through the hotline, knowing that often technology issues can cripple, the engagement at home. So the technology department is ready to get involved and troubleshoot tech issues. But we're also looking at conferencing, steady conferencing, on-demand conferencing. A lot of that may happen in the afternoons with staff, but we know that's important to keep up on communication. Virtual parent conferencing, telephone conferencing, obviously platforms that we're going to support and stay up on. And then, one last note there on communication, that we will be utilizing, classroom paraprofessionals to assist in feedback and making sure we're responding in a timely manner. Food service, we noted, will be available. We'll have more information coming out on that with pickup times. Our special education, social work departments are working through wellness check-ins, schedule calls, making sure that we're reaching out to families, that we're providing support to families in this time. And just a little more information there about special education, IEP goals, and the supports that we want to have in play during the remote stage A, and actually carrying through stage B and C, especially for those students that are electing full-time remote only. Some pieces about technology. We do have a support email, and we do also have a support line. This group is ready and already fielding questions. I will say, if there's a need for technology and devices or Wi-Fi hotspots, to make sure that you're reaching out, you could use this support line. You could use the survey link that was sent out Friday that's posted online. You could call. Really, any of those vehicles of communication will get the need out and the request out. That's our primary focus right now, is to get technology in the hands of people that need it. Lastly here, and then I'll give the principals a chance to jump in, and we'll check email for questions. Just the general draft schedule. And it's safe to say that at all buildings, we're looking at the live instructional time in the AM, roughly running through noon. And the elementary has a good breakdown of what those instructional blocks will look like. And then at-home lunch, some activity time, and then we engage in an afternoon session that's probably more asynchronous for students, but also providing avenues for families to connect, students to connect with teachers or support groups. One of the questions that came up was, why are we only doing instruction half days? The response on that was, partly feedback from families wanting a balanced approach and not wanting their students to necessarily be, sitting in front of a computer for 6-7 hours a day. That was the first part. The second part was, we're going to utilize that afternoon for more scheduling of contact parent communication. So the feedback was pretty critical that families want to have access to staff want to have access to families, and that is a natural time to do that in the afternoon. One piece we did not fully have incorporated in the spring was the utilization of classroom parapros for this kind of online engagement. So we're really building that out this year and really wanting to capitalize on these afternoon hours. Staff will also be collaborating, planning, having professional learning community meetings. We could be doing PD in the afternoon with staff. And that was another reason to have staff on site. I've received questions both ways. Why are staff on site? Why are they not on site? What would the exceptions be? The majority of staff agree that being on site is good. It's good for kids to see. It's good for the structure, but it also puts people in the building in the afternoon to collaborate and plan. So one of the things that we're working hard to do is have continuity by grade level of departments for those kids that are full remote, even after stage B and C. And so regardless of whether you're an online teacher or an in-person teacher, the planning is going to happen with continuity by grade level at the elementary and more by department as you move into secondary. We think that's important to have that continuity. So the full remote students are getting the same kinds of goals and objectives and content as best can be delivered remotely that in-person students are getting. So there is this continuity of planning that we want to have in the afternoon. We'll provide some good time to do that. I'll pause at this point, looking at the clock. We are scheduled to quarter after, so we do want to get to some Q&A. John or Jim,
Yep.
Jay, any comments on this plan? And then while you're maybe making a couple comments, I want to jump into the email.
Okay.
Jay, are you checking emails over there?
Yeah, I'm trying to sift through the questions. So we might have to go back through and pull those up, anything that you haven't hit on. I did want to clarify the schedule. I could imagine that, looking at the schedule, when you dig in and you start looking and seeing that, wow, from 8:45 to 10:30, is my kindergartner expected to be on a video call for 2 hours and 15 minutes. And so how we've really broken this down is that, this is the duration of time specific to that block. And so, the video lesson, the activity might, that's happening in the synchronous model might only be 15 to 20 minutes. That will be partnered with a guided practice and then work its way into an independent practice. And so we just want to make sure that families understand that the block schedule does not necessarily indicate that a student would be on for a 45-minute time frame. That would be a lot for our littlest learners to have to embrace. And so that was just something that we wanted to make sure that everyone was clear and understanding. The other piece I just wanted to touch on is it's kind of this afternoon planning and intervention structures for the elementary schools. And coming into this year, this is by far the most challenging year for students and for staff that we've ever seen in education. And we've had obviously leaving in the spring, we're coming into a year where we have students that did not get to experience full curriculum and receive the full level of instruction that they would have normally received at the end of a school year. And so there are going to be things that we're going to have to go back and do, quite a bit of reteaching to make sure that we've established those foundational skills for students. And so that afternoon is going to be critical so that we're meeting with students that need the additional instruction and the additional one-on-one support or small group levels of support to help students make progress in those core areas.
And good clarification. I'd also add that we're recording the live sessions and we'll be posting those on the platforms. There were a lot of questions about attendance. What does that mean? And I apologize, I forgot to bring this up. Attendance will be monitored. What does that mean? Well, it means there's going to be flexibility, just like in a traditional model. If something is going on family-wise and your son or daughter cannot attend, that's why we're recording the sessions to post up. The encouragement would be to watch that video at another time, or maybe that's an afternoon session with a parapro to get caught up. Flexibility is the name of the game. We're just taking a lot of feedback from the spring and trying to structure out a day where the majority of parents were saying, we want a little more structure this time. But we also need to be very flexible with, as Jay pointed out, we know life is happening, things are going to come up. And so, I want to put that out there on the attendance. we want to set that accountability there for students to help parents, getting kids up, getting them ready, right? Having this structured rhythm as best we can compared to a traditional day. But there will be flexibility built in. We understand that. We know that has to be there. John or Jim, anything? And then maybe we can start working through the questions or looking at how we might group some of these questions together.
I think, first of all, I want to thank our parents for all their patience and their understanding, during this time. It's been stressful for everybody. I can certainly understand those who are disappointed that we're not going to be face-to-face right away, but there's good positive things that are happening in this remote plan, because I think, with what we're dealing with with this pandemic, it's going to be rolling changes, and we're learning every day. Duke just came out today with a study on the efficacy of face masks and things like that. I mean, they're very, very effective. Some are more effective than others. So we're going to learn every day. But the other thing with that schedule, with the block schedule, as Jay alluded to a moment ago, keep in mind that your teachers are going to be putting kids into smaller groups. They're not going to be sitting there with, this 28 kids all the time. It's not going to be sit and get kind of instruction. We do want to start building those relationships with your son or daughter, and that's important, so that when they come back, or when they do come back face to face, we've already got that started. One other quick thing too, just from social emotional wellness part, we're already talking about giving our teachers some tools and different things to work with kids, possibly using some of our parapros to help reach out to kids who haven't responded, that type of thing, so that we can just make sure that everybody's as fully engaged as possible. It's different times, but nothing that we can't excel at. I'm confident of that.
Thank you, John. I'm looking through the questions, and those of you listening in, I appreciate your flexibility. I know this seems a bit kind of loosey-goosey how we're running this. And this is the guinea pig group, so I appreciate your latitude. We're working through questions now, and I want to get through as many of these as possible. I will point out we are crafting a frequently asked questions document. We started that based off of the online question survey that was sent out. And a lot of our conversation, that was the canned conversation, was based off those questions. We will be publishing that. We will be responding to each of these emails. But there's a lot of questions getting grouped. One of them was, do you mind if I just start working through some of them and we jump in? Is that fair, you guys? Okay.
Yep.
I'm just going to go right down the line. There was a question about IEP accommodations. And again, I know we talked briefly about that. When will we know about these accommodations? I would say any IEP that was in play last year is still in play. Our team will be reaching out to all of those families or guardians that have children that are on IEPs to have an initial conversation, reaching out. I think they've already started. That is foot on the gas here. And what the idea here is, we're going to review that IEP. If we need to meet, we're going to meet. If it needs to get adjusted for the remote model, then we'll convene, the team meeting and so forth. But we are very well aware that and committed to meeting the needs or adjusting based on parent and team decisions. Jay, would you like to add anything generally speaking to that? Jay does oversee our special education department as well.
Yeah, no, you hit on it. Our caseload managers are going to be contacting families, and having the conversations around what will specialized instruction and service look like, what supports are going to need to be in place, in the remote model. Obviously, education is going to look very differently in a face-to-face, 5-day face-to-face model than it is going to be in a remote model. And so, we're going to work very collaboratively with families to work out a plan that best meets the individual needs of each of the students.
Right. And right, when in doubt, reach out. And so we're absolutely getting inundated with emails, phone calls. We are working to get back with everybody, not just in today's meeting. I mean, we asked for the emails here, but we are responding and prioritizing, and we know that families that have IEP children, that's a priority as well, and we've got a good team addressing that.
Hey,
Go ahead, Jay.
I was going to say, do you want to, if you're going to jump to the next question, there's a lot of great questions about daycare, and I don't know if we want to share out some of the collaborative conversations we've been having.
Why don't you hit the daycare question? I was going to do about how teachers are assigned. We talked about that, but what are you reading?
So I have a question. What if kids are at daycare and can't be on live? So that it kind of came up a couple times, just about the real-time instruction. I guess the first thing I'll make sure everyone's aware of is that all of the lessons will be recorded. We'll also have videos that are going to be recorded that a student is going to be able to watch at any time, during the day. So, that is the asynchronous piece, but I don't know, Randy, if you want to touch base on some of our conversations with daycare.
Right. We have had initial conversation with owners of daycares, lots of email correspondence. We actually have a collaborative joint meeting we're looking to book this week. If you are online and you own or work at a daycare, please send me an email. We have a couple other owners on the ground trying to just get everybody corralled into a virtual meeting. We absolutely want to support daycares. We're looking at providing technology, hotspots, curriculum, content. I mean, whatever daycares need, we are going to do our best to provide support. We know that even transitioning to stage B and C, we'll have learners that are at a daycare setting fully remote. So this will not go away when we get into a stage B and C. We want to see this through to the end. And so those conversations have started up, and I know I use this phrase a lot, but the foot is on the gas pedal looking to work this out. And if it means we've got to buy more hotspots or Chromebooks are a better platform. I know my tech guys are going to flip out right now because I'm bringing up Chromebooks. We're a Mac district, but we are absolutely willing to consider anything for our daycares and our families at home. There was a question about supplementing daycare costs. And while I do appreciate that, we can't directly do that. I will say this, though. We are investigating. This is third-party information I heard last week, potential federal grants for childcare that may be available. I have no other information other than that at this point, but I have heard secondhand that some schools are investigating or in a process with potential grant money. We are absolutely chasing that lead down. I don't know what it looks like. I hesitated to even say that because I have no other information, but we absolutely know this is a hardship for families, and hence really trying to step up with our area daycares at a minimum and support them. Question about teachers and how will they be assigned. I did reference, we're trying to group out the 100% onliners from the kids that want to come back into stage B and C to minimize teacher movement. And our principals are working tirelessly on that right now. The best thing that families can do is get on that survey link and choose at this point what you think you're going to do. I did receive a couple questions about, we needed more detail on the remote plan when that link sent out. We don't know what we're going to do. Totally respect that. You don't necessarily have to fill it out then. If today has helped you, get back in, resubmit it, and just put in somewhere in there that, hey, the first response from this family, disregard it if it's a change. This is fluid, it's evolving. We understand that there's a lot happening. And we're not going to hold you to what you're putting in these in these surveys. If you change your mind, we're going to work with you, okay? But we're trying to get a head count there on establishing teachers. Let's see, Jay, do you have another one?
There.
Go ahead, jump in.
I know that's a lot of questions going on around these teacher assignments. We're working this week based on survey data to get those out. Our goal is to have those available to parents by Tuesday morning next week, if at all humanly possible. We still haven't assigned the teachers to those classes. We're still working through that. Everybody's kind of on hold while we get that data. I know last spring, my predecessors, Becky Moore, worked with Pete Campbell, our dean of students, which I thought was a very creative way to work with kids for class assignments for this year, which was to try and split the classes last year by mudrooms, by 2 classes that work together, and try to keep kids together, knowing that they'd missed a lot of things together with it this year, and without much time to get with other kids, to have some common kids from last year's class in with their class this year. We're trying to still maintain that while still trying to figure out how we address a potential A/B schedule and how that aligns with other buildings. So as soon as we have that information, that is our top priority. But again, like Randy said, having that survey data as accurate as we can to be able to assign those students that way is critical. We also are looking at teachers who have an interest and skill and interest, just personal interest in working with that full online group. Because we want to, if you're planning to stay online through the semester, we don't want to be mixing kids back and forth between classes all the time. We really want them to stay in that group so they build some camaraderie together, develop relationships with that teacher. We don't want our youngest kids, any kids really, but our youngest kids bouncing around. They need that stability. So that's our goal, is to give them that stability.
Jim, excellent feedback. Could you chime in quickly on some of the details about kindergarten? Our littlest wildcats coming in, and maybe anything right now that might be unique to this group?
Well, like I was going to say earlier, and I didn't realize I somehow had muted myself and went to jump in and couldn't get in. So I wondered what's going on here. So technical fun. That schedule that shows that the live morning synchronous makes a lot of sense for adults and for kids who are a little bit older. And in fact, from an online environment, because they're a little more independent. Really what that is to me, particularly for our young fives and our kindergarten kids, is a goal to get at. Our teachers have already contacted me this morning saying, our goal with our youngest kids is to connect with them, build relationships, build routines. A lot of the kids don't have the stamina to do that much all at once. Our first few weeks in a face-to-face with our young fives kindergarten kids, even to some degree first and second grade, it's kind of a slow roll getting the heavy lifting, the heavy curriculum things out to kids until we kind of get them that routine. So that's going to be a goal to get there, but it might not look exactly like that for the young fives kids and kindergarten kids the first week or two. We're going to be working on that. I know a lot of concern about working on, at least within the first couple of weeks, having one-to-one or face-to-face contacts with our teachers, probably one-to-one virtual contacts with parents and kids to make sure that there's that conversation and follow-up. We're working on some other ways to connect with teachers, with kids. We're working on those plans this week. So that's the tough one, because it is so heavily dependent on adults to support those kids versus different from middle school, high school kids.
Jim, I'm going to keep you in the hot seat for another question. Students in kindergarten able to log in after hours to do remote learning, or do they have to log in at the specific time?
No, they don't. We know that we've got a plan. We're using Seesaw, and the reason we're using that instead of Google Classroom is that it's much more age appropriate and adaptive for younger kids and more user friendly for them, because we're going to have kids in an online environment who still aren't readers. And Google Classroom really is heavily dependent on, you've got to be able to read and write and make those react, be able to communicate that way. There'll be access using Seesaw throughout the day. Whatever we understand, there are lots of kids and families who won't be able to join the live instruction, the live parts in the morning. So everything we do, we're going to have remote. We're going to have recorded videos that are available through Seesaw, where there's ability. Seesaw also provides ability for parents along with the kids to communicate with teachers much more fluently, much more effectively than what we would do for the younger kids in Google Classroom. So that we're working on that. Our teachers are going to be trained more intensely on that, how that is. And there'll be directions on how to, parents directions and support on how to interact and engage in that with the kids, because I know, again, when my kids were 4.5, 5 years old, trying to do online without me there is it doesn't work. We've got to be able to support the parents as well.
Right. Good. Thank you, Jim. Thank you for that question. A couple more. A question about determining which teachers will do strictly remote versus, starting remote, moving to face-to-face. Will the survey data be used? There was a question about comfort level. I think this person is referring to. Great question. I would say yes, that's initially getting used, but we're constantly surveying our staff on the comfort level of doing full remote. And again, the data that's coming in is critical from families, because that's going to help us plan on those families that want full remote now. And we're in the process right now of having those dialogues with teachers about potentially doing strictly remote versus preparing to transition to a face-to-face. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to chime in on there's been several questions in the emails about teacher assignments and kids, who's my teacher going to be this year? And just so you know, because of these surveys that have gone out, we're working on that currently. Probably we'll be putting out class lists next week sometime, which is pretty normal the week before school starts. But those are changing because of those students who are looking at all remote and all that. So.
Right. Yeah. Thanks for that clarification. There was another follow-up question about teacher assignments being posted. I'm assuming all teacher assignments. When you guys post class lists, is it normally like on the front doors? I know when I was an elementary principal, we always posted them all on the front door. I'm not sure if that's what this individual is asking.
Well, we used to send postcards out in the mail, but last year we went to email.
I'm sorry. When will they be posted? You answered that. I'm sorry to interrupt you, John. I can't read, apparently. You covered that. The other one, a couple questions about open house. We have gone back and forth administratively on an open house, a meet the teacher night, especially at those key transitional grades, like a 5th to 6th. A 8th grade to 9th grade, and especially for our littlest Wildcats coming into kindergarten, first time school experience for many. I don't want to misspeak here, but as of yesterday, we were having, I think, logistical issues trying to plan that a week out from school and managing that amount of students coming in potentially on campus. John or Jim, is there anything more up to date or tailored on maybe special things that are in the works to help kick off these relationships? I think that's what this question is getting at. There's nervousness in a traditional setting, moving buildings, especially, even in your building, second or third.
Yeah, I would think the first thing we talked about, at least the early elementary, would be every staff member, every teacher is going to do a kind of meet and greet video of themselves to be able to push out for the families and kids to see it that next week at some point in time. We also are talking about, like, for our youngest learners right now, our young 5s, kindergarten kids, some type of, even if it's a car parade where we can schedule time for them to come through and have the teachers out there where they can see them, so that the teachers for these kids, they see it's a real person, not just a picture on a video that they've never seen before, and make a real connection with that. That's because for some of these kids, they've not been in school in that capacity and they need to see that. We also are talking about, and we haven't gotten the details yet, of what it will look like to have some type of scheduled interaction with teachers, with their kids and their parents as soon as we can get the logistics worked out. Our teachers don't report till next week, so it's a tight timeline to figure out how that's going to work, and whether it's going to be next week or have to be scheduled out the first week or so of school is one of the things we got to talk about and work through. John, anything to add to that?
For the later out, we have a little bit of time as far as like orientating the students to the building, with the fact that we're on remote for a couple of weeks here. So we'll be working with the staff when they return and getting their ideas on what they feel would be workable. Yeah,
it doesn't make much sense to bring young 5 kids in, 5-year-olds we've never been in school and show them what the building, a little bit of the building, and then they're not in here for multiple weeks. We got a little bit closer to when we're face to face. The physical orientation of the building, yes.
Question about more information on Stage B. When will that be coming? I know many families need to know what days, Stage B will look like. That 1 to 2 days. Are they half days? There was a question about why would we do half days versus full days. I'm kind of free associating right now off script. Jay, you might want to chime in. Yep. Looking at the calendar, we're on the 11th. When do you think it's feasible that we will have a Stage B, firmed up? I know we're into that right now, but is it fair to say by the end of next week, the 21st, we will have more guidance on Stage B?
I would say that would definitely be feasible.
Okay, so several questions on the timing of there. That will be our target. We know that information is important, even though Stage B tentatively is set to begin September 21. We know planning ahead of time is very important. The caveat on all of this will be obviously a phase 3 will change things, or significant, upticks in those criteria points. But as of today, we are wheels up. Sticking to this timeline. So, make a note of this, administrators. We'll be beating up stage B here, after we get through the town halls this week. Good question. Thanks for that. Okay, moving quickly here. Oh boy, this email has quite a...
Hey, Randy, I'm going to jump in on one.
Please jump in. I'm reading this one over here. Which one are you? Okay, go.
And I'm picking a couple of questions, one off the chat thread, one off the email, and putting them together. So great question about not just students with special education services or 504 plans, but we have students that are also on what are called IRIPs, or individualized reading intervention plans. And the question was related to, will those students continue to receive support? We will be going back and looking at all of our IRIPs and identifying a structure to be able to provide either individual or small group support in the afternoon. And then coupled with that question, there was a great question about, oh goodness, I got to find the right wording here. What are you doing for kids who learn easily and then become bored? That was a conversation that we had at the elementaries as well, as how are we providing those extension opportunities? And so while we'll be providing the tier 1 core instruction in the morning, and then looking at potential, the tier 2 intervention as well as extension instruction in the afternoon. And so those are going to be opportunities that are going to be sent out to families as well, whether it be individualized for intervention programming, or we're sending out extension opportunities for students to engage in further extended learning.
So Jay, to piggyback on that,
Yep.
With IRIPs and all that, those supports, our instructional support specialists, our literacy and math specialists, are already assigned to do and to coordinate that work. We've already been in contact and constant communication with them about that. They're planning to coordinate between themselves and any support staff, paraprofessionals, and people who normally would be providing those kinds of additional supports. But that's a part of our planning next week. It's part of our getting a handle on that and identifying those students and continuing those plans and continuing those supports, whether it's embedded both in the 8 a.m. time of live or the afternoon time, that it's more where there's more flexibility. We're on top of that and going to work with that and get that. That's a priority. We know that has to happen. And as far as the enrichment or the extension for kids who learn easily, it's really a part of the PLC process. And that's what our teachers are going to be working on in the afternoons, is what things is not just what do kids need to know and how do we know it and what do we do for kids who are struggling. A part of the PLC process is what are we doing for kids who already get it or get it quickly, and what can we do to provide enrichment and really push them. So there's opportunities to provide those supports and as in the remote environment, just like we would in the face-to-face environment. So that's a part of our work, has to be a part of our work, and should be that regardless of what kind of mode we're delivering the instruction in.
Right.
Excellent, thank you. Just a couple other questions here. Let's see here. Will the school provide printed worksheets, workbooks for students to do some handwritten work? I actually received quite a few pieces of feedback on this, often referred to as packet work. I know that was heavily used by a lot of schools, in the spring. I don't have an immediate answer other than to say that is on the list to talk about and work through and develop a response on. It's becoming clear that we very well may need to provide certain levels of written work. Yes. And so I don't have a definite answer yet. It's on the list. We're working through that. I would stay tuned for more information unless building principals or Jay have something more definitive. If not, I'll keep moving. We talked a little bit about kindergarten orientation. Would it be virtual? We're working through details on that. Could school arrange 10 to 15 one-on-one virtual meeting time for students, possibly with their teachers, as an orientation kindergarten or young 5? Yes, we're working on some type of special startup for our earliest learners. There was a question about parapros assisting teachers during live instruction. Yes, that plan is coming together. Part of the way we're utilizing our support staff, they would be online. Google Meet does not have a breakout room option like Zoom. You can run parallel Google meetings. So I could see maybe small group work happening, but we will have additional para support online, right? Assisting the teacher, encouraging students, maybe fielding questions from parents. I mean, a lot of this will just kind of play out as we get into it, but that staff will be present. How can parents reach out to teachers for progress monitoring or student-related discussions, email, phone calls, virtual meetings? I would say all of the above. That is part of the afternoon block, especially to be available for consultation, small group student meeting, one-on-one student meeting, or parent-teacher conferencing. Question about MCS certified staff. What's the difference between MCF teacher staff, MCS certified staff? Very good catch. That's just a typo. So whenever you see certified staff, those are typically teachers. They have to gain certification. There was probably one area where it was just MCS teachers / staff. Typically, our paraprofessionals are not required to receive formal certification. There's always training going on, but good clarifying question there. Certified staff are typically, we're referring to teachers. Okay, I don't know if you have another one to jump in on. I'll keep going here.
There are some questions about, and this would probably be more in the stage B, stage C, but protocols for positive tests, kind of around contact tracing. I don't know if you just want to touch briefly on.
Absolutely. And I would say this week, at the latest Monday, documents will be posted that are return to work documents, various documents on how the district will be handling different scenarios regarding staff, student symptoms, symptoms while not tested yet, symptoms while a test result's pending, symptoms with a positive test result. Those are the 4 main criteria areas that the health department is issuing guidance on. We will have full procedures. They're drafted already. They're just being proofed and vetted. But we will have extensive procedures there on how we're going to handle staff and students that are symptomatic in those 4 areas. Without a test pending, a positive result, and then some guidance for families at home, obviously on how to cope with a positive test result, and the days, the requirement of time out. I mean, those are the big questions for staff and families, and that local health departments are issuing guidance on that. So those documents will be cleared and will be posted most likely by Monday. So great question. Yeah. The other procedural item, and again, want to clarify comments in a couple of letters back I sent. I think some of my comments missed the mark just a bit, probably more my issue and how I worded things on why the remote plan. Is it because we don't have supplies? We don't have cleaning people? Some of those hurdles I outlined, we're just trying to show the community, communicate to the community, just the challenges and logistical planning that we're having, every school's having. We do have enough supplies. We do have PPE supplies. We roughly have enough for the first marking period, which is pretty standard for schools right now. Supplies are continuously coming in weekly. We're scavenging supplies from multiple suppliers, but we have plenty of masks, gloves, hand sanitizer, disinfectant, that if we were mandated hypothetically to start school face-to-face in 48 hours, we have the supplies. We have the cleaning crews. It doesn't mean that the schedules aren't changing, that they're not working more. They are. We're prepared. They are fully engaged right now and will be on a stage A because we will have folks in the building. But we do have staff. We have plenty of crew. Look, the bottom line is we'll hire more if we need them. Well, that's not an area we're going to cut corners on with cleaning. And so those two pieces are there. And again, I don't want folks to walk away thinking, oh, well, we're not prepared or we don't have supplies. I probably could have wordsmithed that a little bit more clearly. When it comes to mask wearing, we are requiring kids to wear masks on site, K-12 in the classroom. Second, 6 through 12 had to anyways in stage 4 at all times except eating. But we have made the decision, and I know this is, I just want to clearly state this for families, students, young 5 through 5th grade, it is strongly recommended to wear masks in the classroom. We have made the decision as a district to require it when we come back to stage B and C. We feel it's the safest route to proceed. However, we will be incorporating mask breaks. And several questions about, okay, what does that look like? Well, they're going to be frequent. The buildings are working this out. We know this is a big deal for a lot of kids to get used to. There's just a lot of procedures coming back that kids will get used to. We know fresh air is important. We're entertaining getting tents put up semi-permanently, for classes to maybe conduct class outside if they can. Protection from the sun, kids to get out there, get some fresh air. So, our charge to the buildings would be, at least every hour incorporating some type of mask break. But I know that question came in. I wanted to get that information out. Let's see. We are a couple minutes over. I did schedule till 11:15. I'm fine continuing. Parents, attendees stay or leave as you so desire. We will be publishing answers to all of these questions in an FAQ. We'll compile them. Principals, you want to give it a few more minutes?
Sure.
Yeah. Why not? Let's keep it going. Anybody have an answer to a question ready, principals or Jay, that you've looked at?
Well, you'd mentioned earlier about additional supplies or materials for parents. We're already planning. As we plan for the first week 1 to go into week 2, for instance, we know that there are going to be some materials that kids are going to need that'll be very helpful for them to have beyond just the online virtual resources. So what part of our planning each week will be to provide those, identify those, have them ready. And we're looking at right now the likelihood of having every week Friday pickup for materials. And they're not talking about just dozens and dozens of hand worksheets. We're talking about specific materials related to the instruction that we're going to do in our instructional goals and essential standards that are critical that parents really may not have the ability to print off at home. And we're also going to be sending our math journals, our math workbooks home that we received for our program, writing journals, and a series of other things actually that will probably be going out in the next either today or tomorrow to know what's going on. But we'll be communicating out with the early elementary, at least around that kind of schedule, what that's going to look like, because there's more to it. And in today's day and age, people don't have printers very often at home to even print off some key things that they need to support
Okay.
with work on. So that's in the works as well.
Okay, good feedback. A couple questions. I think this was already addressed about a kindergartner being at the computer all day, 8 to 4. A little confusion about the bell schedule. I think we did address that we're asking and providing a generalized engagement time in the morning. Will vary greatly from kindergarten to a 5th grader. Your kinder might be in math at 9 a.m. I don't have the schedule in front of me. The engagement lesson might be 15 minutes, where a 5th grader might go a little bit further on the engagement live lesson, 20, 25 with some independent work. But I don't believe it's our intention for a student to be available start, 8 to, let me pull that. I don't want to start throwing out random times, 8:45 to 3:45. That's not what we're saying. We want to focus on engagement and live instruction in the morning, and then have much more flexibility in the afternoon. And I guess I'm anticipating parents driving afternoon pieces. The parent emails Jim and says, listen, my son needs some one-on-one. Okay, we're going to set that up in the afternoon. That's parent driven. You might have a teacher reach out to a parent and say, hey, Mr. Larner, our parapro, could spend a little one-on-one time virtually with your student in math. He's available in the afternoon. I could see that happening organically. So unless I'm misspeaking, principals, we're not expecting kids to be in front of the computer from 8:45 to 3:45, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And flexibility. If there are situations at home that come up, just reach out, communicate. Sounds like we've got paper items coming together. We're going to record items. Again, we know this is a lot to put on families. We want to be very flexible. We're not going to be, hounding and strong-arming kids that are missing some of these live things, but we felt it was important to set some kind of structure out there to support families supporting their kids to get up and get ready and get around. But there's a great deal of flexibility we're going to build into this. Good question, though. Let's keep going. Let's see here. Commitment to fully remote. Once we commit, can we change? Is it by trimester, semester? Great question. The survey asked for a commitment by semester, and we know some families have already made the decision, regardless of anything, they're going to be full remote. We're going to absolutely work with families on this. We are asking probably for some kind of commitment by marking period, maybe quarter. And again, I'm free associating a bit here. We haven't beaten it up by building yet, but that will help us in planning. But principals, I don't want to overcommit you right now, but
Yeah.
I mean, clearly we're going to work with families if a structure is not working.
Yep, we'll do that. And I think the one thing to keep in mind is, if you sign up for full remote for that period of time, you'll have an assigned teacher for that. Now, if you decide, no, I want to go face-to-face because the school's back face-to-face, they're not going to have that same teacher. They'll be changing teachers. And we try and do that on an equitable basis. So you may not have a say or anything in that regard, but we'll be communicating with you on that process.
Right. Thanks for that, John. Question about transportation. Masks are required in phase 4 on all buses for all students. Question about schools of choice transportation. We are transporting schools of choice students. There will be a clarifying communication that comes out. But if you are a school of choice family, when we get to a point where busing is required or needed, that will be happening as it did last year, nearest stop kind of scenario. I know it was communicated earlier this summer that we'd be no longer transporting schools of choice. We have adjusted that. We will be providing schools of choice transportation for those that need it. Let's see, I'm still working through. Okay, question about daycare. How will kids engage from daycare? We did address that. We're working with daycare providers, even providing technology and what better or additional wireless connections. I do sense I'll have a better gauge on this week. We're meeting with daycare leaders. I'll have a better sense after this week about where multiple institutions are at in terms of supporting the plan. Generally speaking, the leaders that I've already talked to absolutely want to support families by having kids engaged during the day while they're at daycare, and we absolutely want to support that. So we're going to come alongside and do what we can. Good question. I know that's a concern for working families that need to utilize daycare. Another question about changing between modes, virtual and remote, that will be allowed. We're going to ask for a quarter commitment, but obviously if there's an issue, we're going to be flexible. I apologize. I'm reading this as I'm going here. I know this is really bad etiquette online. Okay, question about recording lessons. We're going to, those will be available on the platforms earlier or later that day. Another question about flexibility and switching programming. Okay, don't be shy, principals. I know the silence gets weird. We apologize. If you see something, jump in.
Well, there was a question raised about the HVAC, and I think those issues have been dealt with. Going back a few years, we had issues in the later out with our HVAC when the building opened, and now it's pretty much Randy, correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, it's pretty much a conventional system, with filtering and other things like any school building would be, except it's modern.
Right. No, I actually, to your point, there is some exhaustive documentation that will be provided to staff and will be accessible to the community. Relatively new here to the district, but my understanding is the filtration system, the HVAC system, was completely, redone after the construction and the issues they were facing. But we will have information on the system, the filtering. That document is drafted. It is complete. It's being reviewed and edited, vetted, and that will be, I'm anticipating, released before the start of school, but I'm anticipating next week. So good question on that. A lot of guidance from your health departments or CDC on ventilation and fresh air. And, one of the other reasons we want to work in, fresh air outside, movement outside as much as possible. Jay, any questions on your end? I'm nearing my last 10 emails. I'm sure more have come in since I started looking at this, though.
There is a question about if all the kids attend school during hybrid stages, B and C, can social distancing be adhered to? So, good question. That is something where, with the most recent survey, trying to identify which families are electing to go to the fully remote. We're trying to gauge how many students would be in a building, would be at a grade level, classroom. So, that's kind of up in the air right now to be able to give a definitive answer. That is definitely something that we are going to try and structure as best that we possibly can. But again, we're trying to identify how many students would be in the building at a time or in a classroom.
So another thing, another question that come up was about the hallways being crowded, students going from point A to point B. We're going to, I know in the later, we're going to do our best to have our specials teachers go to the classroom versus the students being transported to their room. That will cut down on that tremendously. And then the other thing to keep in mind is that, students have to be within a 6-foot proximity for 15 minutes to contract the virus. So, a simple passing in the hallway isn't necessarily going to infect a student, even if they did do that. And that, we have plans in place to have students come in through their cubbies doors, like off the bus, that type of thing, so that we can, space the kids out as much as possible.
Same thing at the elementary too. We're looking at using the mudroom doors for kids to come in and out of, to minimize hundreds of kids coming in through the same entrance. And like specialist classes, either going to the classroom or being outdoors whenever possible for PE
Yep.
and music.
Yeah, good feedback. I would say, I think our health department, Van Buren Cass District, has a 12-minute rule.
Okay.
I believe it's a 12-minute rule where if you have to be within the 6 feet or, I'm going from memory here, more than 12 minutes to be considered, in a situation of exposure. So passing in the hallway, those brief encounters, and again, we're going off health department guidance. It's either 12 or 15 minutes. I might be mixing health departments. Shockingly, they're not all the same. The information getting released. Question about FAQ being released as we go and not waiting. Absolutely. I think we could publish an elementary version. There are a lot of repeats building to building and questions, but obviously some will be tailored more to age groups. We're going to work on that today, and probably do this through a Google document that we can share so we can continue to update it. Great. That's a great idea. Great feedback. Another question about teacher scheduling assignment. I think we covered that. Question about class size. Good question. Wondering about class size, if it might be less than 28. If many families opt out, maybe going full remote or virtual. Also wondering when, teaching assignments, that's coming next week. Okay, so you're absolutely right about class sizes decreasing if we have a quarter of our population on remote. The last survey, about 2 surveys back now, we were at about 22% when it's full online learning. And I haven't looked at the most recent survey in the last couple of days to say whether we're above 22% or below. The last time I checked, we were actually at about 25% now when it's full remote. So you're absolutely right in this statement that undoubtedly will impact class sizes. The data I don't have in front of me right now is where is that broken down, or how is that broken down? That data is there by grade level. We'll have a much better handle on that. Or the principals probably have a better handle on that right now. I know they've been in that document, but absolutely that could impact class sizes. Absolutely right. Let's see here.
On first blush yesterday, we had probably 2 sections in each grade of the later OWL that could be remote learning.
And that's about how many kids?
That's
50, 45?
50 to 60.
Okay.
Combined. That's
right.
25.
So right there, 2 sections per grade level are saying right now we want full remote for semester 1 or the full year.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So the question, the person that asked that, or anybody else wondering, that might give you an indication right now how critical that data is coming in to really help us establish class lists and limit the teacher movement with students. Question about social distancing in the hybrid stages that was talked to, addressed a little bit. There was a question about full day in a hybrid. If we do all kids on site several days a week, are we going to be able to social distance? I think the short answer to that is not as effectively as if we brought half the kids in at a time. Clearly, with half the students in a building, roughly, you're going to be able to achieve higher rates of social distancing at 6 feet, probably even higher rates at 4 feet. That is an area that we've struggled, in the spirit of transparency here. I think a lot of districts have struggled with the strongly recommended language in phase 4 and feel like, we are in a predicament as a school. And I'm not passing blame back to Lansing, but, clearly there is an option for schools to have to make that choice about social distancing. In some districts that are returning 5-day face-to-face full kids, they're not social distancing the 6 feet. They can't. It's impossible. Some districts that have more space or empty buildings, they're spreading kids out, right? And so that will have to be a decision that gets made and conversation that is had and will be communicated with the Stage B plan on whether we're going to do split the student body in a hybrid or bring everybody back. We haven't decided that yet, and that is a factor we're looking at on what degree of social distancing do we feel is appropriate and versus the engagement of kids and safety and so forth. There is conflicting information between the American Pediatrics Association and CDC, for example. Last I checked, CDC is really the 6-foot recommendation. Your pediatric, I want to say is 4. John, did you say 4?
3.
3. And I've had many parents emailing me about this conflicting data. And again, we don't want to debate the data on these websites. I will say from our vantage point, it has put us in quite a predicament trying to determine some of these phase 4 recommended pieces. And I know we're not alone. Many districts have struggled with it. So more information coming on that Stage B. Stage C, let's see. I'm almost to the end of them. Okay, good question. Are we giving families the option to remain in last year's grade instead of advancing? Valid question. I have not even thought of that. I'm not sure. I'm just going to be honest. That's a great question. I would defer to John and Jim on that. I mean, the teacher and principal in me, I get a little squeamish on the retention. We often have to work with parents. I mean, I know there's personal feelings on that and professional feelings. Given the situation, I certainly understand why this is getting asked, though. Yeah. John, Jim, thoughts?
We do a screener when we get, and we've had 3 requests so far this year, which is really unheard of. But we do a screener on those kids, and then we have, lots of meetings with parents. The research doesn't support retention for academic reasons, but every kid is different. Every student is different, and it just depends on their individual needs, when their birthday is at, how they're at, how they are socially, emotionally, those kinds of things. So it's a holistic question. But what I've always said to my parents is it's ultimately your decision as the parent. We will provide you with data. We'll tell you what is recommended. We'll make a strong recommendation, but typically it's their call. But it's not necessarily something you do lightly.
Right. Yeah.
I'll add to that. The reality is every student last year got a abbreviated year, so didn't get everywhere where they needed to be. So we'll be addressing that as far as adjusting some curriculum and some things that we need to cover that was missed last year. We'll also be looking at, this is from my perspective, is where were the kids who in relationship to their peer groups who were significantly behind or delayed when we closed last year. That's a different, that to me is a group that we need to be looking at considering, because if we say, well, all, the reality is all kids are have some loss of instruction and time from last spring till the summer and over that. We need to look at the kids who are really having challenges last year and where are they at when they start the school year to see if that's appropriate. Be looking at retention or not. But I do agree with John. There's very little resource that supports the long-term effect of it, a positive effect. But there are individual cases that we need to look at and make some decisions on and get parent input on that too.
Yep, great question. I kind of looked through the last remaining emails. I know some of the emails had multiple questions. Again, we're going to publish answers to these questions. Jay, there was a question about IEP evaluations that were mid-evaluation before the shutdown and maybe are still open. Did you already address that?
No, we didn't. Not specifically to evaluations, but our case managers and school psychologists will be in touch with those families to talk about what those next steps will be.
And then one question about high school. I know this is not the high school meeting. Tech Center is green light go. We are transporting kids to Tech Center. That schedule is getting developed. High school will be reaching out, confirming attendance and scheduling and all of that. So that is a green light go on transportation. I do want to respect time. We're about a half an hour over. I wasn't sure what to schedule. I didn't know if an hour and 15 was too long, too short. And I know we've lost about 100 attendees. Everybody, we topped out almost at 230 people online, 227 maybe, and a real testament to the engagement of this community. That has been something that has inspired me and encouraged me as a new person, the level of commitment and care and engagement that our community has, and also that our staff have, our support staff, bus drivers, food service, admin, teachers. That as an outsider coming in, I am inspired and really moved by the care and concern that we're seeing. Just maybe some concluding thoughts. We're going to run the meeting again tonight at 6 o'clock. We'll go do the overview, just like we did on the 2 pages, and then generally take questions. This meeting has greatly helped, I think, guide some of the conversation and answer questions proactively for tonight. And so we appreciate the amount of feedback here. And again, we understand this is not perfect. It is putting people in the gap with daycare or just concerns they have about starting remotely, even if daycare isn't an issue, special education and supports and wellness. And we know there are folks that disagree. And there are folks that very much disagree with this plan. And some of those folks have asked questions today to clarify, and I appreciate the discourse and the professionalism that has been displayed. That is not always the case. And we understand this gets very emotional. It's weighing on all of us. We're parents, we have kids. I have kids starting in the school this year as well, remotely. And so we just appreciate the feedback. So I think at this point, we'll gavel the conversation and hit the pause button and hit the rewind and start it again tonight. We will be holding middle school and high school, middle school tomorrow, high school on Thursday. And very similar format, probably a little bit different questions, obviously geared more to those age groups. But as always, our contact information is online on the website. Please reach out. When in doubt, reach out, email your building principal, your teacher connection from last year, We get emails forwarded from teaching staff, from parents that had a connection with teachers last year. Yeah, don't hesitate. We're going to do our best to get you information. We will post this recording online if you want to refer to it, or you have a friend or a colleague that couldn't make it today or tonight. I think there's a lot of great questions and useful information. Hopefully it's been productive and a meaningful time for you. And at this point, I'll allow our panelists to sign off and give any concluding thoughts.
Thanks, everybody. We appreciate you working with us and your support. I've had numerous emails of support from parents, so thank you so much for that. It means a lot to us.
Thank you, John.
And same to me. I appreciate being here. It's a strange time to switch jobs and jump into a new spot in this time, but it's a strange and different world for everybody right now. Appreciate your patience. We're doing everything we can to alleviate concerns and issues and questions as best we can with staff and with parents and kids. It's we know that we all know for 5, 6, 7-year-olds online isn't the place that we expected to be. I've asked our teachers a couple times already about how many of you took a class in college on how to teach 100% online with 5-year-olds. They all look at me like I'm crazy, because it sounds crazy. So we're in totally uncharted territory together. We're going to figure it out and make it work until the time we can get back face to face 100% and go from there. So we'll be in touch. Looking forward to seeing you all.
Jim, thank you for that. Jay, any last thoughts?
Yeah. So just appreciate all the great questions today. Obviously there's the questions out there. We're going to be working through them as we go in some scenarios. And while this isn't ideal, obviously for our youngest learners, we appreciate everyone's flexibility. As we kind of navigate these uncharted waters together.
Yeah, and thank you, Jay, for that. And again, yes, a thank you. We can't say thank you enough and express our gratitude enough to staff, administration, board support, and really an engaging community that clearly loves Mattawan, loves our district. And I'm happy to be part of it and very honored to be here as well. And we're going to do our best to support families and as we move through these stages. And I wish you all a good rest of the day. We're going to convene this meeting, and it's always abrupt because the host is going to end the meeting and it's going to kick everybody out. But please don't hesitate to reach out and continue the dialogue. And if you've got time tonight at 6, jump back in. We'd love to have you again. But otherwise, stay safe. Have a great afternoon. Go Wildcats. Thank you, Ashley. And whenever you're ready, you can pull the plug.